Controversy arises as Congress considers the Equal Rights Amendment. The U.S. bishops and pro-life groups warn it would lead to a major expansion of taxpayer-funded abortion. Some members of Congress are pushing for the ratification of the ERA to the U.S. Constitution. The amendment states that, quote, equality of rights under law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Even though the original deadline to ratify the amendment was 1982, some members of Congress now want to remove that deadline. U.S. bishops sent a letter to Congress last week urging lawmakers to oppose the ERA. The bishops write in part, quote, one consequence would be the likely requirement of federal funding for abortions. Both supporters and opponents of abortion believe that the federal ERA would have this effect, as well as restrain the ability of federal and state governments to enact other measures regulating abortion, such as third trimester or partial birth abortion bans, parental consent, informed consent, conscience-related exemptions, and other provisions. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee joins us now from Capitol Hill. Senator, welcome back to the show. Do you have pro-life concerns with the Equal Rights Amendment?
You know, there are so many concerns, including pro-life concerns, with the Equal Rights Amendment. And there was a timeline, there was a deadline, the time was not met. And, you know, when you look at the Constitution guarantees us equal treatment under the law, equal justice for all, and that should be where we keep our focus.
Senator, the ERA is painted as pro-woman. What's your response to that depiction?
When people want to say that this piece of legislation or that piece of legislation is pro-woman, I think that what we have to do there again is revert to looking at the Constitution. Look at our founding documents, and you have the guarantees: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You have the guarantees of equality. That is the framework under which we should all be working.
You are a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. If the ERA advances in the House this week and is in fact referred to your committee, what is your message to the fellow senators on the Judiciary Committee, and do you expect it will be a split vote?
What we're going to see is the House will move forward. Bear in mind that the Democrats in the House have moved very far left. And whether it is voting rights or the pro-amendment to do away with right-to-work states or some of the funding measures that they are pushing an agenda that is a far left agenda. They know that they are going to be losing the House and the Senate in 2022, if not before, through special elections. So what we have to do is just block some of these measures, because our responsibility is to protect the country, the Constitution, to protect our freedom and our liberties.
There is growing discussion about Democratic senators wanting to get rid of the filibuster. If the filibuster is busted or altered, what would that mean for the pro-life cause in the Senate?
If the filibuster were to be busted, if what you would see is a race to the finish line, if you will, by the left, trying to push forward this socialist far-left agenda that they have constructed. Would it be doing away with some of the protections for life, for religious liberty, for the Second Amendment? Of course, because they have said if they could bust the filibuster and just run across all of our freedoms and liberties, take those away, give them to the government, and install the government as the entity that can tell you what you can do, when you can do it, how you can do it, what you're allowed to even pursue. They're going to do that.
The Senate is expected to vote this week on whether to confirm Xavier Becerra as the next HHS Secretary. As of recording time, that has not happened yet. But Senator, how will you vote? And are you concerned about what Becerra's confirmation could mean for the pro-life cause?
Oh, of course I'm concerned about Becerra. I had placed a hold on that nomination. It is now moving forward. I will be a no vote. I was a no vote on his cloture. I will continue to oppose his nomination.
Senator, is it possible right now, the fact that the Senate is split 50-50 with the Vice President as the breaking the tie vote, is it possible to make pro-life advances in the Senate during this term?
We're going to continue to work to make pro-life advances and push forward with legislation and contest rules, bad rules. And with Becerra potentially going to Health and Human Services, bear in mind, we have someone who is a radical. He is anti-religion, anti-life. He also has zero health care experience in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, thank you so much. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this week and discuss the ERA.
Good to join you. Thank you.
Thank you. And joining us now on Skype is Mallory Quigley, Vice President of Communications for the Susan B. Anthony List. Mallory, the Susan B. Anthony List, your group opposes the removal of the ERA deadline and says the ERA would, quote, enshrine abortion on demand in the U.S. Constitution. Can you break that down for us and explain why your group will now score lawmakers on how they vote on this?
Yes, thank you, Catherine. Well, you and Senator Blackburn have done an amazing job explaining this. You know, the fact that the ERA would enshrine abortion on demand, this is something that actually pro-life and pro-abortion groups have both acknowledged. For a long time, you know, the ERA, this is a decades-long battle. Pro-abortion groups were saying it has nothing to do with abortion. But privately and more recently in just their public communications, they have not hid back the fact that they see this as the key to undoing every state law limiting abortion, every federal law limiting abortion, including, as you noted, the partial birth abortion ban, any type of protections for young girls who are seeking abortions or being, you know, forced to seek abortions. It's incredibly disturbing. So because this is such legislation that just gets to the heart of everything we've been working on for the last few decades since Roe versus Wade, we are double weighting this on our scorecard so that lawmakers understand how serious of a problem this legislation is.
Ratifying the amendment would require government funding of abortions and would block state and federal legislation to protect the unborn, as you've been describing. Where do things stand with the ERA now? And are you hopeful, Mallory, that attempts to revive the ERA can be stopped?
Well, I'm hopeful that there are people on both sides of the issue who have acknowledged that just from a process standpoint, that the ERA is dead. The late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as recently as last February, even said that the deadline has long since passed. Virginia, Illinois, Nevada, states that have ratified the amendment, allegedly in these recent years, that they cannot count towards the 3/4 number of states required to add this to the Constitution. Recently, a federal district court judge who was appointed by President Obama actually just said, as a matter of law, reading the deadline that was put in place, that the recent actions by those states that I mentioned earlier just cannot count, and the ERA is dead. So it's important that we don't. But in Congress, the Schumer-Pelosi Congress has been all about changing the rules, including the filibuster, as you mentioned. So I think that they'll won't stop at this vote. They're going to try and do everything that they can. And if it passes, hopefully that there will be some litigation that it will not be added to the Constitution. But we need to fight now, and lawmakers need to hear from their constituents.
The U.S. Catholic bishops are also warning the ERA could threaten religious freedom and could make it difficult for faith-based organizations to use conscience protection laws. As a Catholic, this is very concerning as well, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, look at what has happened with the Little Sisters of the Poor and the conscience rights in Obamacare. The ERA, also the another deceptively named legislation, the Equality Act, actually writes into the bill that the Religious Freedom Restoration Act cannot be used as to protect conscience for people who object to abortion-inducing drugs. This just opens up further conscience problems, forcing Catholic healthcare providers, Catholic hospitals to participate in abortion, things that we also find objectionable as Catholics, transgender surgeries, sterilizations, all sorts of things on the basis of sex.
We only have a minute left, Mallory, but we are expecting a vote on the Equality Act and the confirmation of Javier Becerra as the next HHS secretary. While that has not happened yet as of recording time, what do you want our pro-life viewers to know, as we do expect both to advance in the Senate?
Yes, I want pro-life viewers to know that elections have consequences, and what we're seeing now on Capitol Hill, and we've been fighting every step of the way, trying to add Hyde protections in to the COVID relief bill, for example, trying to stop the Equality Act, stop the ERA in committee. Senator Blackburn is doing her part. But this is the result of the last year's election, and people need to stay engaged because there really are implications. If you ever thought your vote doesn't matter, this election doesn't matter, just reflect on what's happening now. And turn out to vote next time, and make sure that your lawmakers know where you stand on these issues.
Absolutely. Mallory Quigley with the Susan B. Anthony List, thank you for your time.
Thanks.